This episode and every episode of the Beer Guys Radio Show is brought to you by Ironmonger Brewing. Visit Ironmonger at their taproom in Marietta, Georgia, or online at ironmongerbrewing.com.
Open up a tab, grab a seat, and pour a pint. It's time for the Beer Guys Radio Show.
You want free beer? Go to the brewery.
Dedicated to the art, science, and enjoyment of craft beer.
Yeah, what's wrong with the beer we got?
Now, here are your hosts, Tim Dennis and Brian Hewitt.
And welcome to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We're broadcasting from the Beer Guys Radio Studios in Marietta, Georgia. And this week, we're talking with Bravus Brewing Company. I'm Tim Dennis, and with me, as always, is my good friend and co-host, Brian Hewitt.
Hey, Tim. So joining us today, we have Philip Brandis, the founder and head brewer for Bravus Brewing Company. We're going to talk about the non-alcoholic beer industry, brewing award-winning beers without alcohol, and what is coming up for Bravus in general. Philip, thanks for joining us.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. How are you doing? Do you have a Bravus Brew open right now?
I don't. I actually have a good old-fashioned Coors Light in front of me. So.
Okay. You know what? That kind of addresses a question we were going to ask you a little bit later. So you are not totally non-alcoholic then, correct?
I'm not. Someone's got to, design the styles and,
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? The research,
absolutely,
right?
Man.
Just research.
A lot of brewers drinking the Coors, the banquet beer, the Coors
enough,
Light,
man.
and it's no different for non-alcoholic beer brewers. So want to unwind with one of those too.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and that's,
cool.
I mean, I'm sure you know because of our show and that we're not exclusively NA here, but we kind of started exploring this at the beginning of this year under doctor's orders. I call it my doctor's orders segment that he said, watch my alcohol a little bit. Mm-hmm. So I didn't have to quit. So that's good. But he said, just take it a little easy. So we just started exploring some non-alcoholic options. And,
awesome.
We've got a ton of questions about it from a lot of people. We get questions. We just had someone yesterday. I don't know if you saw it on Twitter, Brian, but they asked us, I'd like some recommendations for non-alcoholic beers, so mentioned Athletic, of course, one of our sponsors, Bravus. And we've got one starting in Georgia. Right Side Brewing is coming up. They're hoping to launch in October. So it's getting big out there, isn't it, Philip?
It is. It's crazy. Obviously, a lot of headwinds these days. Tailwinds. With respect to the whole better for you sort of movement and everything. Yeah, like you said, doctor's orders and on one end, and then just sort of we call those sort of the can't havers, right? People can't really have a lot of alcohol, and then on the other end, sort of the younger spectrum, millennials and Gen Y, sort of the don't wanters. Those are choosing to sort of be a bit better to their bodies and a little bit healthier. So,
they've seen what happened to us.
That's right.
With all of this stuff. So, good deal.
It is challenging to knock back a pastry stout after a marathon. Challenging, not impossible.
You can do it if you try, though.
If you really dedicate.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, Brian, what sort of alcoholic or non-alcoholic things did you get into this week?
So most of my beverages were either caffeinated or alcoholic.
Okay.
And I'm still, as before, working my way through my cellar. And I pulled out a Heavy Seas Holy SHEET. I don't want to be anybody to think differently. It's a from 2013, 7 years old, 9% Belgian double. I think they called it an Imperial Belgian double or Belgian double at triple strength. Anyway, aged in brandy barrels for 2 months. Boozy, love the brandy character. Great with a cigar. Oh, for 7 years old, fantastic.
That sounds
loved
nice,
it.
I like a good vintage brew. And
I also had a Balearic Brewing Company out of Portland, Oregon. Their Pancake House Cocoa Maple Coffee Stout. And so it sounds like this was interesting. It sounds like a big pastry stout, but it's 11.5%, but it's a Russian Imperial Stout. And it had a lot of like roasty coffee bitterness. And I really enjoyed that. It kind of really did a good job of balancing out all the sweet character.
All right.
I found that I really, really enjoyed the higher bitterness of that. So what about you, Tim? What did you do?
Brian, took kind of easy. We both did this. We stopped by Firemaker Brewing this week.
Yes, we
got
did.
To great patio weather. Was cooling down a little bit in Atlanta, so we got to enjoy that. They've got a new beer out for football season called Fourth Down. And interesting, Brian, we haven't cracked those yet. We've got some in our fridge here, but it is a Citra dry hopped Oktoberfest.
Oh,
so I'm curious to see what that's about because it sounds interesting.
I'm on board. I'll do it.
Yeah. So it'll be fun to check out. Also, I stopped by the Nest, a barbecue and craft beer place here close up in our neck of the woods here in the northern suburbs of Atlanta. Talked to those guys, got to try a beer. Brian, Wild Leap Birthday beer number 3. Did you try any of the birthday beers that they put out?
I've had, I think it was the first one. It was like a triple IPA. I really enjoyed that.
That was really nice. That's what
but I've not seen any of the other ones yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they also, the guys at the Nest are involved with Apotheos Roasters coffee roastery. So I got to go see where the soup is made, where the lemonade's made, or the coffee.
The coffee is made. Where the coffee is roasted.
Where the coffee's roasted. Got to see the big roaster there. They got 15 barrel bright tanks for big cold brew coffee that they can up there. So that was pretty cool. And then stopped by Dry County Brewing Company to get some of their Oktoberfest, because I'm drinking every Oktoberfest I can get my hands on.
Hold on, Tim. You said you took it easy. That sounds like a lot of stuff.
It is pretty easy. It is. Yeah. It was easy doing all of it, Brian. It's very easy. Philip, have you done a non-alcoholic Oktoberfest?
The closest we got was a sort of, and this is really more for the holidays, but kind of a spiced amber ale. It's like a winter warmer kind of thing, you know, bunch of orange zest and vanilla and cinnamon, nutmeg, you know, not really an Oktoberfest, but again, plays in the holiday spirit, I guess, to some degree.
Seasonal holiday.
Seasonal, yep.
I'm the biggest hater of fall and winter of all the people out there. Like, I actually like fall, but as the temperatures start to dip, it makes me think about that winter is coming. So I ruin my enjoyment of fall by being irritated at the fact that winter's on the way. But I make up for that a little bit because I really love the beers that we get this time.
Yep.
You know, I love getting, you know, starting with a little bit of maltier, lighter stuff with the Oktoberfest and that we see this time of year, and then going into the big holiday stouts. And we do actually, Brian, we kind of bookend the holiday beer season. We start with our Oktoberfest blind tasting, and then we do the Christmas blind tasting.
That's right.
So we kind of get that there. So
I'm looking forward to that. I
always look forward to that. It's a good time. Absolutely.
Hey, Tim, I think it's time for us to talk about the beers of the week.
Crack open a cold one. It's the Truck and Tap Beer of the Week. Woo-hoo! Craft beer and food trucks in downtown Woodstock. Truckandtap.com.
Well, Brian, as always, we have a great selection of beers. We're going NA today, Brian, as you might have expected. Philip, thank you so much again for sharing some of your beers with us. We do appreciate it. And we're getting into the Raspberry Goza. Lighter tartness, more the fruity. The raspberry comes through really well. We're also going to get into their IPA. They have an amber ale, an oatmeal stout. And Brian, when we've sampled and we know how we feel about it, we'll talk about it more, but they have a peanut butter stout here.
Yes, they do.
So we're going to get into all of those and see what they are all about. So Brian, what's happening this week in the news?
What's in the news? The beer guys have the scoop.
Extra, extra, read all about it.
Time for headlines.
All right, so we knew there was going to be some bad numbers for the beer industry this year, just considering everything going on. And according to the Beer Institute, the COVID-19 pandemic will cost the U.S. beer industry 651,000 jobs by the end of 2020. So that figure sounds really high, but it actually includes jobs that are supported by the industry. So not directly in the industry, but supported by it. According to the report, that's 3,600 brewing jobs, 1,800 distribution jobs, and 400,000 retail-related jobs. And in terms of beer retail sales, they're going to decline by more than $22 billion overall. On top of this, there is the specter of the Craft Beverage Modernization and Tax Reform Act expiring in 4 months, effectively meaning a $154 million annual tax increase for the industry unless Congress asks soon to either make it permanent or extend it in some way. So another interesting stat that I've been wondering about, it is estimated that the shutdowns left $1 billion in draft beer in limbo in the supply chain. They could not be sold.
Crazy.
Those are some bad numbers, some scary numbers. But
you remember they were doing things like dumping milk in fields and that because they just couldn't go through it there. So
I think they were fertilizing Christmas trees. They were using old Guinness that they couldn't sell to. It was a news story from a few months back that they couldn't do that.
At least making use of it, right?
Seriously, yeah. So, and now for some news that no one would have believed possible in 2019, Munich has banned alcohol on its Oktoberfest grounds. It's completely illegal to do it. That's because of pandemic concerns. You would think canceling the 2020 Oktoberfest would be enough, but the city was concerned that people would organize replacement parties on the grounds during the traditional festival time, which would have started last Saturday.
Yeah.
Police have been on the lookout for large spontaneous parties on the grounds, but there have not been any yet. But though there were demonstrations that had been registered for the grounds, demonstrations in quotes, that may have been for this purpose of getting together, drinking, and partying. This is the first time that Oktoberfest in Munich has been canceled since World War II, Tim.
It's crazy, man, what a pandemic will do to you. But that's who would have thought that the drinking, not only is Oktoberfest canceled, but you can't even drink.
You can't even drink on the grounds. Yeah, you could be arrested for that.
And they're right. They most definitely would have had pop-up events happen. People still would have made it.
That's what those demonstrations were. We're pretty sure,
quote unquote, right? Well, you're listening to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We do need to take a break, but we'll be back very soon with more from Bravus Brewing. Brian and Tim, the Beer Guys. If you're like us, no lunch or dinner is complete without a pint or two of craft beer.
Which is why Truck and Tap in downtown Woodstock, Alpharetta, and Duluth are always on our list. Tim, why do they call it Truck and Tap?
Well, the tap part is easy, Brian. They've got 18 of them.
As for the truck part, that's where it gets interesting. Truck and Tap features your favorite Atlanta area food trucks, so you're getting a different menu every day.
Truck and Tap in downtown Woodstock, Alpharetta, and Duluth.
Truckandtap.com. Let them know that the Beer Guys sent you.
You know we love good beer, and Athletic Brewing makes non-alcoholic beer that stands shoulder to shoulder with their boozy brethren. With a fraction of the calories and certified organic, it's a great beer to enjoy anytime.
Athletic's got new brews like Cerveza Atletica just in time for summer. Check out the full selection at athleticbrewing.com. Use code BG25 for 25% off your first order, and U.S. customers get free nationwide shipping. Athletic Brewing, brew without compromise.
Follow the Beer Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
To be the man, you gotta beat the man. Woo!
Now, back to the Beer Guys Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Beer Guys Radio Show. Remember, all episodes are available on demand, so if you missed the broadcast, get the podcast. Beer Guys Radio is available on all popular and unpopular podcasting apps. Let's get back to Bravus Brewing.
Bravus Brewing. We're moving on, Brian. We're just getting into the IPA. Did you get the IPA, Brian?
I did. It's right here, Tim.
I need some. I'm going to need some of this. So, Philip, so we kind of addressed this a little bit in the first segment. You are currently enjoying a delicious Coors Light, so you're not 100% non-alcoholic beer. So with that being the case, what got you started brewing non-alcoholic beers?
Yeah, great story. You guys have mentioned Pliny the Elder. I was actually in line for a couple years back for a Pliny the Younger release. My brother dragged me to, I'd never even tasted an IPA before, really, at that point. And then here was my first one, and noticed that there were 100 other, I don't know, idiots maybe, or schmucks, standing in line for 4 or 5 hours in 100-degree weather, waiting for a single 12-ounce pour of some beer, right? And of course, by the time I got up there, one or two sips, I was completely wasted by then, so I didn't remember how good it was. But realized that, look, obviously there's something here with craft beer. At the same time, I had a good friend from high school, big home brewer, big craft beer aficionado. He, as brewers, I guess back then started putting, more and more alcohol, the doubles, the triples, the imperials, the quad. I mean, it's like, how much alcohol can we squeeze into a beer? And unfortunately, he developed a bit of a drinking problem. So went sober, checked into AA, started unfortunately picking up the Sharps, Duels of the world, and some of the imports, and was so devastated and embarrassed. We would go out to a bar restaurant, and he sort of whispered to the waiter, "Hey, can I have no Duels?" And even when the beer came to the table, he would sit there and turn the label around so that no one else really knew he was drinking one.
Hide your shame.
Exactly.
Hide your shame. Yeah.
So here he was having something, and I'd never tasted one, finally took a sip and spit it out. I go, that's not beer. And so here he was, not only drowning himself in his misery with the vacuum distilled NA beer, but was embarrassed to, in addition to that. And so I said, look, you teach me how to homebrew. And it's funny, I mentioned earlier, I was a software engineer, right? What does that have to do with beer making? But he taught me how to homebrew, and I sort of set out and looked for a way to make something different. I didn't want to approach it like everyone else had historically, because let's face it, they're just not the best things out there. And so using my sort of tech background, started diving into the research, looking at and learning as much as I could about fermentation and brewing and yeast. And I figured, if I could program computers, maybe there's a way to program yeast. And after about it, built a little microbrewery, again, dove into the research, started playing around with the data. I mean, everyone, what does software development have to do with brewing? But I think most people can home brew a beer, but to sit there and brew the same beer over and over again really takes a lot of data. And so started really looking at ways to sort of just analyze every aspect of it. And about a year later, brewing, and after brewing about 1,000 gallons of really terrible NA beer, I finally stumbled on a process and a unique approach to making just great tasting NA beer, where we're not actually taking anything out. We're just not putting the alcohol in the first place, and it makes all the difference. Yeah.
That's something.
I was going to ask, as a guy who is also a programmer, how much programming did you actually do? Did you build databases for this to use AI to analyze your results, or was it just a lot of beersmith work?
Yeah, well, no, a little bit of both. So yeah, built software around it. Grabbed a device that actually would float in the tank and beam me, original gravity and temperature, and started mapping the data and looking at how yeast would sort of perform under different sort of stresses or different temperatures, and again, all database. So yeah, a lot of just sort of techie, geeky stuff to make NA beer, which is kind of funny.
That's pretty impressive.
It
I
is
like
impressive.
That. Yeah.
Do you want me to step out, Brian, and nerd out?
Yeah, hang on. It's going to be about 45 minutes if you can come back.
Right.
I was telling, I think I may have shared this story on the show before, but my first experience with NA beer, I think I was 11, maybe 12 years old. And my buddy and I were walking around the neighborhood, and we went in this health food store, and they had a beer. The only thing I remember was Texas was in the name. I think maybe Texas Select or something like that. Yep. But we thought it was cool. It's a non-alcoholic beer. We can get this. So we bought it. It was like $1.50 for the can. This would have been in the 80s sometime. So we get it and we leave. We're walking through the neighborhood, and we're passing this beer back and forth, drinking it. We get pulled over by the cops. We get busted, and the policeman comes up. He's like, "What are you guys doing?" We're terrified, man. We're like, "Nothing. We're just drinking." And he takes it and looks at it, and he's like, "Oh, this is a non-alcoholic beer." It's like, "Yeah." He's like, "I wondered, 2 kids walking down the road sharing a beer. They look kind of funny." So yeah. So my first experience with I actually got busted for non-alcoholic beer.
Wow.
So yeah,
that's great.
They didn't haul me in though.
Off to a good start.
Off to a good start there. Absolutely.
You are destined for the beer radio business.
That's it, from an early age. Sure enough.
Yeah, we get that question a lot. Hey, can we pound one of your beers while we're driving? I go, you probably could, but the optics would just be so bad.
We actually had we were trying the Heineken 0.0.
Yeah.
And we had the cans, and we're like, man, we really could. We bought them and got in the car, and we're thinking we could just crack this open here and drink it. But the same thing, we're like, man, if a policeman sees you, you're getting stopped. He may find out it's non-alcoholic, but they're going to get you.
Now, I think it was a thing for non-alcoholic beers to typically have an overwhelming amount of blue in the can or the art to kind of cue people off that it's non-alcoholic just visually. So I'm noticing that's not the case with your cans, but I thought at one point officers would have known, but maybe not. Maybe they're not unaware.
Like secret police cans for the non-alcoholic beer. That's the biggest BS I've ever heard.
Well, no, I think it was like a color coding of the can. Like if you see a can that was at one point, if you saw a can that was, I think it was blue or something like that, you knew it was probably non-alcoholic.
That sounds like bro science to me.
That could be. I swear I read it somewhere. So have you ever heard of that? Am I making that up?
I have never heard of that, but I could see our next ad being, these guys are in a car and they're like cheersing an officer, a blue can, and he's like giving the finger guns back, going, "Yeah, it's cool."
Yeah,
don't worry about it.
There you go, man. We're brainstorming here.
Sure carry on, fellas. Carry on.
Yeah. Talking about that, just the accessibility of it. I know that you can ship most places. I actually just recently found out Georgia is one of the pain in the butt states to where we can't get it shipped here because of the way our laws are written. But I think there's only is it like 5 or 6, Philip?
5 states. Yep.
Yeah. So that really opens it up a lot for you that you can direct ship pretty much anywhere, right?
It does. Yeah. No, we started, right out of the gate with e-commerce shipping, and it's been great. We learned early on that, e-commerce is a great way to sort of get out wide. I mean, every state and even overseas. And so, it's interesting because it's probably the worst product you can ship, across this country. It's heavy, and they tell you when you get into e-commerce, never, ship cans of whatever, right, of water or anything liquid, because it's just heavy and
it's heavy, right?
Shipping's expensive, and beer ultimately, the poor guy in New York or wherever is waiting, 7 days, 6 days for his beer. And if during the summer, if he's at work and it gets delivered, so it's sitting on the porch for 5 or 6 hours, you can imagine what the beer tastes like after that journey. So, but it's great because we get a lot of data from it. Again, back to the data with respect to basically why you want the beer, and all that jazz.
This may be anecdotal, and I think it's something that we've seen here, and I don't know if it's fact or just us, but does non-alcoholic beer, is it more perishable than alcoholic beer?
I think it depends on the process. We pasteurize our beer because, well, two reasons really. I mean, legally, we don't want anything to happen once it sort of leaves our brewery because, let's face it, we don't often enjoy the nice cold, cooler at a store. Sometimes we're on the shelf, and again, we're shipping, great distances and all sorts of weather. So
Right.
we do pasteurize, which really helps with our shelf stability, kind of locks in the flavor so that, again, nothing in terms of either bugs or re-fermentation, things like that. So legally, again, keep it under that 0.5% because unlike the alcoholic guys, there's no leeway, right? You can sort of be off by 1.5% with an alcoholic beer or whatever stated on the label. With us, we don't have that. It's got to be, under that 0.5%. And so,
you can't have a 2%
Exactly.
non-alcoholic beer,
right?
right?
Yeah, defeats the purpose a bit. And then just morally, right? I mean, think about who's drinking
Sure.
our beer: pregnant women, designated drivers, those in recovery. And so, again, it's one of the reasons we have to make absolutely sure that it stays under that 0.5% when it leaves.
Got to keep it in line there, man.
Yep.
You're listening to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We do need to take another break, but we'll be back very soon with more from Bravus Brewing Co.
Have you ever thought about owning your own brewery but don't know what it takes to get one built? We're Storytime Construction, and we build breweries. We're Georgia's most experienced and hands-on contractors when it comes to building new breweries and tap rooms, or expanding existing breweries. We offer full build-outs, remodeling, and additions, as well as consulting and construction management. Give us a call at 770-733-4343. Storytime Construction. We build breweries.
Craft beer forged with a reverence for tradition and new styles that start a revolution. Ironmonger Brewing. The brewers at Ironmonger Brewing pride themselves at being masters of barrel-aged, hoppy, and sour beers. They invite you to their tap room in Marietta, Georgia to taste and see. Also visit their barrel room for an intimate drinking experience with great live entertainment. Keep up to date on all things Ironmonger by liking them on Facebook. Ironmonger Brewing, establishing a new standard in craft beer.
Follow the Beer Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Now, back to the Beer Guys Radio Show.
Shake it back!
Welcome back to Beer Guys Radio Show. I want to give a quick shout out to one of our great radio affiliates, KFAR 660 AM and 97.5 FM in Fairbanks, Alaska. Catch Beer Guys Radio on KFAR every Saturday at 12 a.m. That's midnight, Alaska Standard Time. One of my favorite standard times.
Do you know, Brian, that Beer Guys Radio goes all the way from Fairbanks, Alaska to the U.S. Virgin Islands?
I have heard this.
We do stretch it. And, Brian, I've got breaking news for us here.
Breaking.
We have a brand new station that we just got this week. Actually, just got the email on it. WUSW out of Springfield, Illinois. That is 92.7 FM. Thank you for adding Beer Guys Radio to your lineup. And you can listen to us on Saturdays and Sundays at 2 p.m. Central Time.
Both days.
Give us a listen. Thanks so much. Welcome to the Beer Guys family.
All right. Let's get back to Bravus Brewing.
Let's do it, man. Absolutely. So, Philip, we were talking, I think we talked some about, shipping and getting your beers out there. We dipped a little bit into this. Alcoholic beer, for you personally, what is your percentage? Do you drink more non-alcoholic beer or alcohol beer?
Alcoholic beer, I'm sort of a bit old school. I always feel like beer, going back to when we were sort of younger, beer you drink cold and fast, and a lot of them. And so for me, my go-to is some of the big macro lagers. But for the most part, I love craft beer. I'm sampling it constantly, just looking for new things, new ways, new styles to sort of either just enjoy personally or maybe bring on as a style for Bravus.
Sure.
So what kind of styles have you been looking into?
What we kind of do is look at sort of what's popular, right? This is a business after all. And so we wanted to, as much as and we do some seasonal releases, right? Like we do a barrel-aged non-alcoholic stout, which is amazing. Sounds kind of a bit of a paradox, but it's, I think it's one of the world's first barrel-aged non-alcoholic beers. But and then so we do the seasonals, but I usually look at styles that sort of people enjoy, and so It's kind of why we have, our lineup. It is what it is right now. 6 SKUs. Amber ale, right, for the Fat Tire crowd, and the white ale for the Blue Moon crowd, the Cerveza for the Corona crowd. IPA obviously is a given, and the Stout, right? And so,
sure.
Are there any styles that just the non-alcoholic process makes it challenging to brew? Is there any limitations there?
Yeah, I think with the lighter beers, it's always tough. We brewed up the Mexican lager, and it's a great beer, but it's something we have to do again and again to perfect, because there's not much going on, right, in a lager in a light style like that. So it's a malt, and in a Mexican lager, it's a little bit of an adjunct to it in a sort of way. And so we have to sort of refine, change up the process, brew it again. And it drives my brewer net sort of crazy in that, like, I don't really pilot a lot of batches. I just say, let's just make 100, 150 barrel batch of this and change it if we need to next time. But it's fun though.
Would non-alcoholic lambics be possible?
I mean, yeah, sure, why not?
Right.
I think there's a way to do most styles. If there's something going on in the beer, it's usually easier to do for an NA style, right? Again, if it's an IPA, it's the hops, right? If it's a stout, it's the roasty malts, and same with the amber and the white ale, right? Get that orange and citrus in it to some degree, and the coriander. So those styles, I think, work well for NA. Again, it's sort of the lighter stuff where there's not much to hide behind. It's always
I can see that,
yeah.
Because there's, I mean, if you're not bringing the alcohol in there, whether or not you taste the alcohol in a beer, it does add to the overall flavor profiling character.
It does,
yeah,
absolutely.
So even if it's not punching in the mouth at 19.2% like a Black Tuesday, it's still in there. Absolutely.
Yep.
So that's something before we drank the Goza, I'm like, I could see this being a style that would lend itself to non-alcoholic beer well, because if you do a kettle souring, it doesn't add alcohol, so you can get your sour there. Or you can just add the lactic acid to it to sour it up. So I kind of figured that would be one that would be pretty easy to I won't say easy, maybe that's not the right word, but it would lend itself well to a non-alcoholic version.
Exactly. It's set up in such a way that you could derive a lot of the flavor without having to need the alcohol.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense.
Another benefit, Philip, we've talked about this, for the health conscious crowd, the people can also have some of these beers and save some calories too. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. Most of our beers are around 100 calories, which sounds like a lot, but compared to a normal craft beer, it's probably around half of like an IPA is probably 250 calories. Same amount of sugars and carbs, right? It's hard to avoid with malt, but I mean, definitely lighter, both on taste and lighter for your gut too.
I don't think a lot of people think about calories with beverages too much.
Not really.
And Brian, you and I had a conversation last weekend about calories in sodas and just sugar in general. So we did some Googling, and there's 39 grams of sugar in a 12-ounce cola. Wow. And a teaspoon of sugar is 4 grams. So we're talking a 12-ounce can of Coke has 10 teaspoons of sugar in it. Jeez. Now, can you imagine to kind of relate that? Imagine getting a 12-ounce coffee, which is a small coffee most places.
Yeah.
And then dumping 10 teaspoons of sugar in it. If you're a person who puts 4 teaspoons of sugar in your coffee, people are like, "Oh my, that's
hold on there. You're going to get the diabetes." So, as they take a sip off of their Coke. Yeah.
So, Philip, this Black Tuesday, 19.2% ish. How many calories do you think we have in a 750 milliliter bottle?
Oh, geez, that's a tough one. I'm going to say 300.
300. That would be nice, man. I would drink them all day there. So a 750 milliliter bottle of Black Tuesday, that's 26 ounces, approximately 25.3.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah.
So
ish, yes.
Slightly over 2,000 calories.
No kidding.
Wow.
Yeah. In a 750 of Black Tuesday. So if we broke that down to an 8-ounce pour, which these big beers like that's typically what you're going to get, about an 8-ounce pour. How many calories? Do your quick math, Brian. How many calories do we have in an 8-ounce pour of that beer?
I would say around 800 calories.
Okay, 616.
Okay, all right.
If you pop a full 12 ounces, there's 924 calories, Brian. So
I would challenge anybody to drink that much of Black Tuesday. I'm
that's
good
a day. That's a day's worth of calories for your average man.
Yeah, well, just the beer itself. It's huge.
Yep.
It's nearly 20% or sometimes over 20%.
Yeah.
Doing 8 ounces of that's a challenge.
Philip, I can almost have a case of your beer for that many calories.
Exactly, right.
Yeah, man. Yeah, crazy stuff.
There you go.
Now, I think you dipped in this a little bit. Did you say that you do sell outside of the U.S. as well?
We do, yeah. We actually send a lot of beer to our troops stationed overseas. So
cool.
It's kind of neat. You can ship it domestically through the post office, and they get it over there. And always love getting a lot of the great pictures of them sort of on the battlefield holding one of our beers. It's kind of fun.
Oh, yeah. That'd be really nice. Now, do you sell at retail over there any? Like, what is it? Middle East and Africa, I think, both have some pretty big non-alcoholic markets, right?
Yeah, pretty big markets.
They do, yeah. So I guess the Middle East apparently consumes about 1/3 of the world's non-alcoholic beer.
Okay.
So we're desperately looking into trying to get over there, so for sure.
Sure enough. Good stuff. Awesome. Well, you're listening to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We do need to take another break, and we're going to come back real soon with more from Bravus Brewing Co. It's time to take your snack back with bold flavors that complement your latest brew. Southern Recipe Small Batch Pork Rinds will do just that with flavors like Korean Kimchi Barbecue, Honey Chipotle, Cilantro Lime, and more. Munch on these beer-friendly bacon bites right out of the bag, or crush them in your favorite recipes as a substitute for breading. Find your next bag at Kroger, or go to southernrecipesmallbatch.com for recipes and a buy two, get one coupon. That's southernrecipesmallbatch.com.
Follow the Beer Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
I believe you have my stapler.
Now, back to the Beer Guys Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Beer Guys Radio Show. If you enjoy the show, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/beerguys. Patrons get cool perks like Beer Guys swag and commercial-free episodes. Now let's get back to Bravus Brewing Company.
So, Philip, as we roll into the fourth segment here, we've tasted the rainbow throughout the show here. We've tasted all the beers, and we're going to try and double up this segment because we don't want to miss out. So we've got your oatmeal stout right now. And I believe this is a GABF award-winning beer, correct?
It is, yeah. That was
silver?
Silver, yep. Yeah, we
cool,
got silver for that, and then bronze for the barrel age called Gravitas.
But, for Gravitas,
yeah,
awesome.
that was a funny one. I mean, you can imagine a whole auditorium full of brewers, right? And of course, non-alcoholic category comes up, and you hear this kind of like snickers and like, right? And then boom, Gravitas barrel aged non-alcoholic stout. Everyone's like, huh? And then and then we got silver for the oatmeal stout, and then they're like, this becomes like, are they going to sweep it? And then unfortunately we get the gold, but there's this whole sort of collective.
That would have been pretty cool.
It was pretty cool, not just for us, but I think for the whole NA category in general.
Sure. Do you get, now you mentioned kind of the mumblings and snickers with that. What kind of response do you get from other brewers? Do you hear much from other brewers about the NA beers?
I think when we first started, it was and same response from the public. It's like, what's the point? Like,
sure.
I don't get it, blah, blah, blah. But I think in the past, just even like 6 or 7 months, it's a whole different thing now. I think we sort of gained the respect of fellow brewers when they come and come and visit the brewery, and like, oh, cool, wow, it's just like how we do it in a way. And so it's all good there, good camaraderie.
Now, you mentioned the Gravitas barrel aged. I'm going to have to assume that is not a bourbon barrel due to the alcohol. It's just some good old oak.
It's a bourbon barrel, but obviously it's a very quick process, right?
I got you.
It doesn't sit on the wood for very long, but kind of crazy. But there's other things that we do to sort of limit the ABV intake, because obviously we don't want to get a 3 or 4% alcoholic stout. But I mean, everyone else sort of does their sort of boozy barrel aged around the holidays. About 2 years ago, I said, let's give it a try, and oh boy, that beer. We only do it for online customers. We only make like 100 cases, super labor of love. I hand bottle it, I hand label it, I hand cap it. It's these beautiful black matte, sort of champagne, 5-10 mil, sort of Pliny bottles, right?
Plenty, right.
Yes. And so it sells out like within maybe 10-15 minutes.
That's what I was going to say. People talking about the NA beer. I've seen, as I mentioned, Athletics is a sponsor of the show, so we've kind of followed what they've done. And there have been several beers that they've released, and they're like, hey, these are going to go on sell at this time. Mm-hmm. They're sold out. These limited batches that go fast. I mean, this is like the days of I remember this with, Black Tuesday is a great example. I remember getting online and waiting, and if you didn't click it just as soon as it went on sale, it was gone. So it's getting these. So there's obviously plenty of people out there looking for these beers.
That was a fun time back in those days, sitting there for an hour refreshing, trying to get in because you had it in your cart, but the website crashed. Yeah.
Well, thank goodness for technology, though, that we don't have to chase trucks anymore. We can do it from the comfort and laziness of our homes.
That's right.
So,
it's a wonderful thing.
Yep.
So you mentioned earlier that you've just gotten into a new facility. Tell us about that. What kind of volume are you cranking out these days of the NA variety?
Yeah. So, again, we were like most of us fellow sort of NA brewers, we were contracting for a long time, and it just became too problematic. Again, I think we spent more on, rental trucks the past year than I did on, grains and hops, because we're moving stuff around different facilities and contracting and mobile bottling or mobile canning. And so finally, earlier this year, we said, it's time for us to get back into our own facility. Found one. The choice was to whether to sort of sit there and build out our own facility, but was fortunate enough to find a facility up in Anaheim. It had just been built. Unfortunately, the current owners were looking for I guess maybe a partner or something to do something different, and so we sort of took over the place and leased the tap room back to them, and took over production. And so we have. In this facility, we have the capability of doing about 25,000 barrels, I would say, if all things fall into place.
Oh, that's good production. Right? That's a lot of production,
Yeah. So it's a sizable facility, well built, state of the art, and we're just very happy to be back into our own home. So
Now you mentioned leasing the tap room back to another brewery. Do you have a tap room for your brews?
Yeah. So within this tap room within a tap room, which we can do because we're NA. Really for and we do sell a lot of our beer in that tap room, but really more for accounts, buyers and things like that, and an occasional sort of non-drinker, because they don't come in by themselves. Everyone comes in, and if you're a drinker, you have a non-drinker friend. If you're a non-drinker, you have a drinker friend. So a little bit of both. I felt that was sort of important, right, for our consumer.
That's handy. You've got the regular beer, and you've got the non-alcoholic. There are an entire section and brewery dedicated to it. It's not like we produce this one thing. No, we have the entire lineup.
And we've talked to several breweries here. Our laws have changed a lot, Philip, in the last few years here. Really, we just got direct sales and some other things. But so a lot of our breweries are doing things where they're trying to get they want to appeal to a larger crowd. And of course, seltzer, as much as I'm not a fan of craft seltzer, a lot of people do it, and they're very successful with it. But I was talking to a brewer today, Dry County Brewing. They do spirits. They've got cider. They do the vodka drinks in the tap room and that. So it's something where, a brewery doesn't just appeal to a beer drinker anymore. You can get people in there. You can get someone who does that. And they, whether you're talking non-alcoholic, you're talking, gluten-free or things like that, having more options, it definitely opens it up to get more people in your tap room there. Sure
I think our whole MO right from the beginning was inclusivity, right? Going back to my friend who was embarrassed, right? So, no matter what the reason is or what you want to drink, I think to offer sort of a little bit of everything, like you said, is the way to go. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, speaking of offerings there, do you find, we talked a little bit about with the Goza, like your drinkers wanted a little sweeter, a little less sour. Do you find that non-alcoholic drinkers, do the palates mirror that of craft drinkers, or a little different desires there?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to generalize, right? Everyone has different tastes, and it really depends on their background, right? Some of the, we have a lot of former craft beer drinkers. We have a lot of maybe people on sort of the older end that, never really enjoyed craft beer. They came from, the Bud Lights, the Coors Lights, or the O'Toole's, and so they're looking for something a little bit lighter. It really depends. There's so many different backgrounds. And again, going back to sort of inclusivity, reasons why you're drinking. That's kind of why we offer, again, a little bit of everything.
You got any hazy milkshake IPAs coming our way, Philip? Man? A little NA IPA. So
no. I mean, as much as I'd love to. I mean, look, at the end of the day, we have to we got to sell some beer and really appease the wider audience. I mean, it's kind of why, in a perfect world, I'd have 5 IPAs. Exactly. I hate hazy or milkshake, but I think for us, we kind of have to go in sort of down the middle of the road. So our IPA is not super bitter. It's not super dry. It's sort of it's middle of the road. Again, if we could do a West Coast, a hazy, and maybe a pale, I think we'd be in pretty good shape. But I think the occasional release with with lactose or something else in it might work.
Definitely, I could see NA beer heading that way. Because like you said, if you'd looked at this I'm guessing maybe even as little as 10 years ago, your options were the O'Douls and the,
that's it,
and all
pretty
of this
much,
out there. So the fact that right now on our studio table here, we've got a peanut butter stout, an oatmeal stout, an IPA, a Goza, and all that are all non-alcoholic, just shows where it's come. So who knows what tomorrow holds if we make it out of 2020.
That's true.
Yes, right.
I was going to joke about like, are we going to see a pastry stout? Well, this peanut butter stout is not too far removed from it. Is this something? It's a regular deal, or is this a one-off for you? The peanut butter stout.
So the peanut butter stout, it was sort of surprising because it's just personally one of my favorite beers. Right, again, going back to the Belching Beaver peanut butter milk stout, and so I decided, hey, let's just give it a try. And oh my gosh, people are flipping out, and I don't know what to do because we make an oatmeal stout already, and I feel like if we release the peanut butter stout, are people going to buy less oatmeal stout? But anyway, at the end of the day, I think we're going to probably stick it into our core lineup, or at least make it available in some of our some of our retail partners. But I love that beer. It's an easy.
Got to do the McRib marketing plan, man.
Yeah,
bring it. Wait till people get hungry for it again, and then send it back out there.
There you go. There you go. Good idea.
Philip, we're running short on time here, but there is one question I definitely wanted to ask. Being NA beer, are you able to work with THC or CBD or anything with your beverages?
Yeah, we actually looked at maybe putting some CBD in beer. I don't know. I feel like to some degree the shininess is sort of worn off a bit on CBD. There's so much out there now, sparkling waters and teas and things like that. Yeah. And I went so far as to actually register CBDNA, right? DNA, NA, CBD.
Okay, yeah.
As a trademark. And then I was like, I don't know. It's tough. A lot of our consumers, again, are sort of on the, I guess, on the older side, and they have a bit of reefer madness. So it's like, oh no, the devil's lettuce, forget it. It's like
that's right.
Absolutely. I don't want to do that. So I think we're going to sort of shelf those ideas for now.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah,
we are about out of time. If people want to keep up with what is happening with Bravus Brewing, where should they go?
Yeah, check us out. Obviously on the web, www.bravus.com. Sign up for our newsletter. A lot of great information where we send out our special releases, and it's a great resource to what's going on at the brewery.
Awesome. Cool. And that is BRAVUS.
Correct.
So check them out. Philip, thank you again.
Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. Well, that about wraps it up for this episode of the Beer Guys Radio Show. Join us next week as we talk with North Coast Brewing. Lots of California recently, Brian.
Yes.
We are Beer Guys Radio on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great week, and don't forget to drink local. Cheers.